Brandon Thomas and Daniel Samper conclude Aquawoman and Aquaman's multiversal journey as Andy gains some unwilling allies in her journey to make it back to her brother and rescue him from his underwater prison. Much like the first part of the story, Brandon Thomas can't weave the same magic he did with The Outsiders. I did like it was ever so slightly more focused than the first issue, but it still felt like it was juggling quite a bit, since we get a backstory to Andy and Jackson's training, Andy getting her new leg and trying to get off the island and back to Jason, as well as the whole concept of the confluence, and then of course Aquaman's prison story. Altogether they lead to quite the mess of storytelling, but apart they would have been very fine stories. Like the book should have just been solely Jackson teaching Andy the lessons we see her employ throughout this issue. The issue even ends with them still stuck in the confluence, so that premise was all for nothing, since it wasn't needed to forward these two characters' arcs. This could have all taken place in Earth in an uncharted part of the ocean somewhere. The lessons that we saw Andy take were genuinely great, and I do wish they were expanded on and were the whole story. Daniel Samper again delivers some really awesome looking pages and even some of the most beautiful looking splash pages I've seen in a long while. His designs for all of the oceans and the worlds and the creatures all in this book were top notch, and everything looked unique and interesting and things I would like to see more of. Future State Aquaman issue 2 felt like it was juggling too many premises and cool concepts, which in turn make every one of them feel like a rush, and we don't get enough room to breathe with each of these premises and concepts. Daniel Samper's work on the art was really the saving grace of this series and was genuinely some of the prettiest art in Future State. I'm going to give this issue a 6.5 out of 10. Future State Aquaman issue 2 heads 6 years into the past, where on an alien beach, the injured Aqualass washes up. She remembers cutting off her own leg and watching Jackson fall before falling herself. A voice soon awakens her. Some strange fish ask if she needs the blood she's leaving behind in the water. The pain from Andy's wounds comes rushing back as she screams in pain, asking for help, but the fish say they can't without the headmaster, and the Glimmerfish deliberations usually last about 6 months. Andy calls for Jackson to help her before telling the fish that this wasn't meant to happen and they are meant to help her since her mother doesn't want her to die. In her panic and pain, she activates her power, forcing the fish to jump from the water and connect to her destroyed leg, giving her a new one. Andy didn't know that that was going to happen, as the rest of the fish demand their brother be returned to them, but Andy says that she asked for help, having no idea what would happen, but she will make everything alright once she has found Jackson. The fish don't want to permit this since she won't survive without their aid. Andy knows her brother is Aquaman and that he taught her everything he knows, which means she can probably do this. She remembers Jackson teaching her how to hunt without her powers, and in the present, Andy tries to hunt with a bow she makes, but the string snaps as the fish say that her failure was expected, and even with her successes, she knows it's not deserved. Andy keeps persisting and eventually catches something, telling the fish to be quiet as she eats in peace. Andy remembers her de-escalation lesson Jackson taught her once when confronting a group of armed men, using his words to talk them down. Andy tries the same tactic on the Glimmerfish, wanting to talk about what happened, but they continue to say her fear isn't all to blame since she's a conductor and there is no difference between her and the others that they have met, demanding she rectify the accident she claims to have done and give back their brother. Andy says that she can't yet, not until she finds Aquaman, which makes the fish angry. Later, Andy remembers her fight lessons as she deals with a group of frog pirates, as the Glimmerfish say that they will continue to send things her way until she is driven out. Andy doesn't give up and keeps on persevering, even when she is sent a giant tidal wave to combat. Andy uses her powers to hold back the tide, saving herself, but much of the island is destroyed. Andy has enough of their games, taking to the ocean as the Glimmerfish demand that she give them their brother back now. Andy says that if she was the person who the fish think she is, she would have taken them all, not just one of them. She says again what happened was an accident, and once finding her brother, she will fix it. The fish tell her to leave their brother with his family, and they know conductors are all the same, as she is only pretending to promise to come back. Andy employs her patience teachings as she continues to swim into the endless ocean ocean, constantly annoyed by the fish. She awakens later on, intending to get to work finding Jackson. Alone in the ocean, she asks the fish that is on her leg why she keeps shifting from world to world, so the fish tells her about the confluence being the nexus of worlds connected by a vast ocean, protected by one great beast. Over the years, she learns that the waters there are a being, and since she's a conductor of water and the beings within it, she can shape it to what best suits her, and even without her express intent, the confluence will take her because she subconsciously wants to be taken. She wonders why it won't take her to her brother, and the fish thinks that it is, it's just doing it the way it knows best. After years of searching, Andy finally finds Aquaman, knowing it makes more sense to wait since they are outnumbered by the prison guards Jackson finds himself imprisoned by, but she can't, sending out a message to him saying that she is alive and she is coming to get him that night. That night, Andy along with some fish assault the prison as inside, Aquaman lives, battling the guards as they soon overwhelm him, beating him down. Andy's fish army blows the prison's power generators up, sending the prison into total darkness, but the guards continue tasering Jackson, saying the darkness makes no difference to them. Aquawoman bursts through the glass dome, flooding the chamber and knocking all of the guards down. Jackson notes how much she has grown, asking how long it's been. Andy asks if he's been there the entire time, learning that he was in a cell and trying to break out after being picked up after their run-in with the giant monster. Andy becomes angered since they have kept Jackson locked up for 6 years. She grabs the guards, knowing that she's going to kill them all as she crushes their heads and beats them into the ground. Through her rage, she soon hears Jackson, who tells her to stop since this is not her way. Andy says that they took everything from them as she blasts more of the villains away with her powers. Jackson says that they take what they give them, so they give them nothing and break them down all the way but leave them alive to remember who did it. Jackson reminds her life is a lesson and that she needs to teach it to these people. Andy restrains herself, escaping the prison with Aquaman, breaching the surface of the water, where Jackson tells the woman it's okay now and she can let the creatures go. After a moment, she uses her powers to let them back down into the ocean, and before Jackson can thank her, she bursts into tears. Jackson hugs his sister, telling her that they are alive and survived and they will find a way home and won't lose each other ever again. Jackson reminds his sister of what he said before about hopping around dimensions in lost time and space with some freaky glowing leg means she definitely is on the Justice League now. Andy again calls him a liar, but Jackson says that's only what he's heard.